Okay then, ladies and gentlemen, it's your time to shine and an opportunity to ask some questions that I know you've been sitting on for the majority of the day. So we have a panel, and you've heard from most of them already. And so before I ask them a question, because you know I'm there trying to win that bottle of bubbly that Amanda mentioned, maybe I should throw just the opportunity open to you to ask questions. And if you don't ask anything, I'll set something off. So, the floor is yours. Remember, there's a prize, and I'm not lying this time. I normally say there's a prize when there's not. There could be. There we go.
Can't say this. As you mentioned, lots of badges, lots of accreditations that you could do, and one thing that's not entirely clear is what is the best way to find out what is going to be the most useful badges to get, not just now, but in the future?
Oh gosh. Okay, yeah, we have an idea. Go on.
Target the job advertisements that you would like to get, look what they're asking for, and make a decision whether or not that kind of set of skills that qualification would consolidate really would satisfy you as a person and your interests. I would agree with that.
I agree with that. Looking at the framework that was on the screen earlier, I should know it. I was at Lloyd's when we implemented it. But I know where I fit in that. I'm definitely in the A box. That's where I've pushed my career. Know where you want to be, and I agree with that. Then look at the jobs that are in there and then see what qualifications. Because all the different qualifications and accreditations that are out there all really align to what is in that skills framework. So that's where you need to understand what it is you want to do.
Also, Tom, there's an element of sort of aptitude and sort of attitude to go after as well. Qualifications will come with time, right? So you don't need to collect all the badges before you can start actually practicing security and getting involved and learning more about it. Those kind of things will also kind of come as a bit of a byproduct as well.
And I think some of these badges can be quite hard. So anyone who's got CISP, which is certified.
Oh God, information security professional, isn't it?
But it's very technical, and people who do it say that it is quite challenging. I'm never going to do it in my life, and I know that. So it's kind of really targeted and making. I agree, it will come in time, but make sure you focus on the right things.
Yeah, they're also expensive.
Yeah.
Yes, and they have to be maintained as well. So you need to think about the maintenance costs because I don't know how much is system maintenance, about £500 a year. The other problem with some of the badges is that they're sort of a bit of a catch-all. So a few years ago, people used to advertise for CISP because it was the only qualification that they knew. So I think it's probably worth working with recruiters as well to actually find out which of the badges that people really want. Yeah. Because as you said, it was sort of people often asking for stuff that they didn't really understand.
Yeah, I think that's quite funny. I mean, Stephen mentioned in his talk in regards to sometimes that's for CIS, sometimes that's for CISA, sometimes for CISM. Main question the main request I get is security certified. And when they say security certified, I know exactly what they mean. They mean CISA, CIS, or CISM, but we all know that they have different elements to them. So I would just be aware that which couples up with the cost as well to find out if it's really worth you doing that. But you could tailor those qualifications to your strengths, and as you mentioned, Rebecca, you're not the most technical person, neither am I, so we would go for CISM, if you will. So it's good to tailor to your strengths as well. As I confessed to one of the gentlemen here, my degree is actually in English literature, so I don't think I would get into any of them.
I think the other thing that I'd add to that, and I would say this as well, is that to have the IISP accreditation, because that shows that you can do the job, and it takes in a very broad set of qualifications. So if whatever you do, align it with a linked ISP after 2 or 3 years, because then you can demonstrate that you are actually doing the job and you're being measured by your peers.
Between a sort of professional commitment versus a sort of others that are more about a competence in a particular area, be it security management or technical security with CISP or risk with C-risk, for example.
So that was a very good question. That started us going. We now have some competition to win the bubbly.
Are there any kind of technical skills that you might see on a CV that immediately is a red flag for like a security position?
When you say a red flag is sort of like, ooh.
Like you see that and think, I'm never going to hire this person in a security position because they've got that particular skill.
Normally some kind of prosecution, to be honest, rather than technical skills.
I tell you what would red flag me, it's not necessarily the CV, but it's when I interview. So I interview a lot of kind of entry levels into our cyber team, and what red flags me is when people are very technical but aren't able to answer my questions. When I'm asking them a more broader question and they go into a kind of really techie answer, that's a red flag for me. I see that a lot.
Attitude is a big thing, isn't it? Is how somebody brings themselves into an office when they're being interviewed. That can get your hackles up, because although you do constructive interviewing, the first impression is very, very important. So if somebody's arrogant, that is a red flag, isn't it? If somebody is too in your face, it can be a red flag as well. And I think coming back to the thing about convictions are a bit iffy, but I think there's going to have to be a change in attitude. I've seen a couple of presentations recently about embracing the hacker community, because the hackers need to be part of the solution as well. So it's difficult. I mean, convictions are obviously dreadful, and you wouldn't want to probably have convictions, but that I think the industry does need to look to the hacking community, and the NCA have been doing quite a lot of work with trying to work with young kids, mainly to stop them going down the black hacker route, and to give them a sort of stop and desist. I can't remember the actual wordings, but stop notice, but saying, hey, you can actually earn a lot of money if you do this legally.
Yeah, it's really bad. You also see some recognised names, especially in the US, use their experience in a good way and start talking at various events like DEFCON, become respected in the industry and sort of reform, if you like, and that leads to good employment, which is great to see.
So remember, you don't need to go and seek a conviction. Get your foot in the door. Okay, more questions. John, excellent.
So I think most of us here are students. I'm one of the ones who doesn't have any industry experience, and we've heard that the Big Four have wonderful graduate schemes which are a good entry point. What other industries or areas might also have the requisite grad schemes or else that would sort of build on the degree, which is very theoretical at the moment, and make you an actual professional?
So I do think that there is a lot more graduate schemes in this space than there was many years ago. And I think that is in response to the increase we've seen, obviously, in the number of courses that you guys are doing. And I would, quite interested with, you mentioned a few in your presentation. There's also, when you look at some of the big defence companies, so your Lockheed Martins, they are particularly strong from a kind of cyber perspective. So the different industries will have different focus on this. So I think there's definitely stronger industries around the defence space as well as the Big Four.
It's true. Have a look at the two links I put up earlier, the 5% and the cybersecurity sponsorship list. So that'll give you a start of 10. The difference for me is in the quality and the structure of the training to transform a new entrant into somebody with a widespread of very sellable skills. The Big Four consulting companies sell skills and people's expertise, their reputation, their personality almost, and they are good at that transformation. It's something that you wouldn't necessarily find such a strength in other organisations, albeit you will get good and diverse experience elsewhere, which is why I highlighted the Big Four in addition to, for example, Tender, I know has got a position on his website today.
you to think that that's the only route to be to be taking. So on behalf of Airbus and BAE Systems as well as Lockheed. So yeah, obviously defence, as we mentioned, have had a big investment. But if you look at some of the IISP members, I mean, we've got people like BP on there as well, in their graduate schemes. It won't necessarily be an out-and-out cybersecurity graduate scheme, but a lot of them will be looking for people to sort of go into junior roles within their cyber teams. So, you know, particularly financial services and things like big energy companies, that kind of thing. They've made huge investments into their sort of cybersecurity teams, and they're looking for more people to kind of come through behind that.
Absolutely. And also, consulting doesn't suit everyone. It's a very transient kind of lifestyle. You have to work in as part of a team, but also alone, and it can not suit everyone. So please don't think there's a right solution.
Early starts, late finishes.
I think also
Many travel to glamorous locations.
I think also we mentioned earlier about how firms also outsource some of their security capability, like pen testing and stuff like that. So do look at your pen testing companies, like your Context, your MWRs, things like that. You know, they are actively recruiting and also trying to bring through young talent. So if that's kind of your space, you know.
And I think if you look at sort of secure operations, you know, the SOCs and things like that, that it may be that you can't get quite the role that you want to have first off, but it's getting that first job that's the really important thing, because once you've got that first job on your CV, you've got the opportunity to move within the organisation, but you've also just got over that first step and go from there. And with the skills framework, what you can do is you can look at how you can take the experience from the job that you're doing and map it to the skills framework, because there's an awful lot in the operations environment that is related to security, even though it hasn't got the big security tag on it.
So I have another career path question, like looking ahead in the future, what's the attitude around moving across specializations within information security? Is it encouraged, or just sort of like move up the hierarchy? What's the flexibility there?
I think one of the themes we've discovered today is to move up the hierarchy. As well as the technical skills, you need to have the communication skills, the commercial skills, and so forth. If you were talking about moving across industry sectors,
more like moving from technical to something like risk or
yeah.
So I remember when I worked at Lloyd's banking group, and I did a lot of mentoring of people who were in roles that were very technical, either in forensic, investigations, that sort of thing, and they were really struggling to move up within their teams, because in industry you have to wait till someone dies until you can kind of move upwards. And my big encouragement to them, and what we were trying to do at Lloyd's at that time from a security perspective, was move people across, get them to go and do different jobs, completely different. So, you know, doing something more risk-based, or doing maybe more some compliance testing or something. But the thing is, what you often find, people who are technical love what they do, and they sometimes struggle to then move across or see the benefit from it. But it does really benefit a career, I think, having that wider understanding around risk management, compliance, etc.
So it's sort of supported by the companies as well.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it.
Yeah, I think what tends to happen is that people get given opportunities, and so if you look at most people's career paths, they sort of jiggle around a bit, and I think that's good for being sort of grounded.
I'm going to sit my neck out and say it's positively encouraged, because the broader your experience, the more valuable you are to your business, the more solutions you can offer, the better analysis you'll be able to analyse risk better, give a more complete assessment, and maybe bring some solutions to the table that are more innovative, simply because you have a breadth of knowledge rather than a narrow specialisation. It really depends on people's personality. Not everyone's suited to that kind of career path. I definitely enjoy having a broad knowledge. I'm not a pen tester, for example, that's focused on a deep technical knowledge of a particular stack of technology, or a SOC analyst. That wouldn't suit me as a person. So it depends on the individual. But I'd say it's positively encouraged and very, very saleable.
something I would add to that, I think it's always best to take a proactive measure to it, especially if you're in a very technical environment. Sometimes you just got your head down and you get on with an algorithm and so forth. But I think one of the easiest way to get across that is through projects as well, is to stick your hand up in the air, get involved in some projects, be the security expert for that project, and then lead you to a whole variety of different stakeholders within the business and also other areas of IT. So.
Everything's moving so fast, right? The idea that in 5 years' time that anyone's going to know exactly what's going to be required, I have a good idea, and it's not going to look completely different. But if you kind of think back 10 years ago, iPhone didn't exist. The idea of a smartphone was kind of those horrible Windows mobile ones that didn't kind of work properly, and everyone had a stylus and that kind of thing. So, sort of thinking ahead from where we are now, those are the future. So getting that broader experience will set you up better to deal with those problems in the future. That's a great problem.
I saw another hand somewhere. Oh, there's loads of them now. That one there, then that one there, then that one there, and that one there. You first, sir.
You use several terms today, information security and cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Do you differentiate between the two, or are they synonymous, and do you think industry does as well?
Sometimes.
I've got cybersecurity in my signature, and it's a commercial aspect. It's a sexy term, and it gets people's attention. Obviously, cybersecurity, IT security falls underneath the umbrella of information security, but it's a marketing term. It sounds sexy.
All the components of cybersecurity were in information security 10, 15 years ago. But cyber has attracted the board's attention. That's how people get investment and money within organisations now. I think what we touched upon in your presentation around some of the changes around understanding attacks and that threat analysis, that's really quite new, I think, in terms of cyber sort of, and where the more cyber angles come in maybe in some of the sort of activity, but I think really it's good old information security.
It's about having an impact on the business, isn't it? It's a very easy way of just having a massive impact on the business in order to ransom them for money, deny their services, and blackmail into paying you lots of cash, through to implementing terrorism and so on. So it is a big, big threat vector that people are now far more aware of, as you said, and it is sexy, I suppose, and it differentiates away from physical security, for example, which people might get confused from.
There's another question at the back there, so I'll keep the questions moving because we're running out of time and we see another surplus of questions now.
So my question is about with security being the main drive in organisations today. What challenges did you face into, say, C-level directors, senior management to the boardroom, and how did you try to convince them or get them to push that security is now the main drive? So, and it's really important.
So I think as a security professional, it's important to remember that actually it's not necessarily the main drive. So it is very important that an organisation is able to operate in the digital economy and be able to, sell their services online and all of these kind of activities. But if you're speaking to a chief executive, they're not security isn't. It might be high on their agenda, but they've got to run a business and they've got to run a profitable business. So the challenges that you get there are helping them understand what it means in their world, rather than and you putting yourself into the world that they inhabit as a board or as a CFO or a CEO, rather than as a security professional where everything revolves around security and risk and threat and vulnerability and that kind of thing. So you've got to find that balance and be able to communicate with them. I think as I mentioned about communication skills being key. But yeah, you need to be cognizant that whilst it is really important, there may be other things that are more important. Share price, for example. There might be some other kind of thing that they need to worry about at the moment. And yes, security is important, they do need to be taken seriously, but you need to articulate it in terms that they understand, not get them to come to you.
Anyone else want
I was going to say the chief exec's job is to manage the risk to the business as they achieve whatever future strategy has been set and agreed by the board. So it's about giving them the tools really to make the decision and to prioritise. And I was just going to add, don't be too sensational, stick to the facts, translate it into their English, as you said, and enable them to make the decision in the best interests of the company. And for God's sake, get it documented.
They're paid the big bucks to make the decision, so give them the facts.
I'd also add to that, though, the regulatory environment. So when I think about C-suite, they want to, yes, be able to ensure that they can grow their business, but they also want to be compliant. So they are focused on those areas of security, especially where the regulators are interested. So if you're able to tick the regulatory box, you have a good conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
We had another question over here.
You guys haven't repeated across all the conversations today that other than the skills gap weakness that the industry has, what do you guys foresee as maybe our Achilles heel within the industry that's kind of hindering our industry? You guys have talked about the different threat vectors, whether it's malware, whether it's ransomware, but what do you think the industry's biggest weakness is right now?
Great question. I think it's marketing, to be honest. It's people understanding our profession and knowing our use and our usefulness to the business and enabling them to achieve their objective. And I guess there has been a historical reputation of not really communicating very well, being the department that always said no to anything, and not being seen as that enabler. And it's that flip that we're really trying to shove hard in our right direction.
I'd agree. Security is the thing that lets you bank online securely and confidently, making sure that you've got the right encryption and the right authentication mechanisms, and that your account is protected appropriately, the integrity of your balance is right. All of that is enabled by security, not prevented. But all too often, it's kind of security says no, Little Britain style. Need to break that connection and be much more about listening to what the business wants to do and helping them to achieve that. If that's what you want to do, brilliant, let's do it. Let's put the right things in place that you can have confidence in what you want to do.
And I think to your point about the Achilles heel, I think I've seen in many organisations that I've worked in that, to our point, they don't necessarily help their IT technical teams grow their softer skills. So I have been in conversations where those teams have said no to the business and you can't seem to get through that gridlock. And I think there isn't enough within firms to actually help people become those all-rounders. And so when you do get into industry, make sure you push that. If you not feel you're getting that, that's for you to drive as well. Don't become one of those people who can't have a conversation with the business.
Okay, and I think what will have to be our last question of the afternoon, this gentleman.
It's actually two things I have in form of questions. The basic theme, which I understand from the whole thing, is apart from being technically adept, you have to know how to communicate. But unfortunately, technical people were not trained to communicate very well. It's a problem. I worked for a bit before I decided to go for my master's, and no matter how hard you work, for example, as a network, support person, making sure, because you have KPIs, you're given, these are your roles, and then you're assessed based on that, and you do it well. They're asked to measure some things, interfaces, bandwidth utilizations. To a large extent, when you were taking on the job, those were the things they said, these are things that will measure your performance on. And then you feel you're communicating that, you're reporting both regularly and on an ad hoc basis based on when they call you. But at the end of the day, you still talk about communication. I'm not in corporate comms. It's not easy. I hear it all the time, but it's not easy for you to say, if you want to grow your career in information security, you have to communicate. Sometimes you don't have those channels to do that. Your job is you're to work and not be seen. That's the way it is. You're told to do certain things. And the second one is, how do you go beyond that? That's one. Secondly, I've had a lot about it's not if but when. So why invest in security? We know we're going to be hit. In fact, just like you said, and some reports I've read said, a lot of companies have been hit, but they don't know. You know, some CEOs will say, you know what, I know that I will eventually be hit and I'll be fine. So why spend all this money? So it becomes a problem. One, understanding how to communicate, and at the same time, you can push. But if you tell me that it's not if, but when, the man will look at you and say, you know what, I know I'm going to be hit, so don't worry.
Well, we've seen the GDPR, what we've seen it come into force in May 2018. So for people to say that, it could be a point where the fine exceeds what you can afford. So that sort of attitude is going to go out the window by force through regulation. So, I mean, it was a very difficult question, a number of very difficult questions, but looking at that aspect, I think those people who have that kind of attitude will be forced to do a complete 180 on that. So
it's not about stopping it happening, it's about minimising the impact to your business and your customers. So one of the clients I'm working with, they regularly are being breached from a DDoS perspective, but it's the one that gets through that has the impact that brings their customers offline. So that's what they're worried about. They're not worried about being breached every day, they're worried about the big one that's going to get through that will impact them.
And it's about recovery. If you look at all of the big attacks that have been out there, it's the ones that have not dealt with it properly, like you talked
Tesco banks.
And we can make a list of them. It's about how you recover and you deal with the incident. So that's the when for me. I think for the communication thing, is that if you find it difficult to communicate sort of naturally, it's not a natural skill, it's something that you can build up confidence with time. And if you talk to the communication groups, like big companies, what they always talk about is what do you want somebody to think, what do you want them to feel, and what do you want them to do. And if you think of those three things when you're communicating to somebody, so if it's a financial director, he's going to want to worry about money. That's the way he thinks. If it's a risk manager, it's what's the risk? If it's a CEO, it's probably reputational damage. So if you take those thoughts and prepare, that will stand you in good stead with actually building up confidence in those skills areas.
I'll tie your two questions together, if that's all right. So in terms of communicating, and you talked a little bit about bandwidth and utilisation, you've been asked to kind of look at measure that, tell me what the answer is, and still Rebecca's bit about a DDoS attack, for example. To communicate that in a more effective way, you need to think about what the person on the other end is. What from a business point of view, what are they interested in? They're not interested in how many gigabits per second it is or something like that. What they care about is what does it mean to my business, and that's the if and when kind of bits as well. Why would you do something about it? Well, you do something about it because if you've got a chance of that attack happening on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, and it's going to take you offline for 6 hours at a time and cost your business, hundreds of thousands of pounds in the process on each occurrence, then you're probably going to want to invest some money to reduce the likelihood of that happening. So, taking the technical thing that you've been tasked with, putting yourself in the shoes of the person that's asked you to do it. What are they actually interested in? Why do they want to know this particular bit of information? And in doing so, you might find that actually they don't want that particular technical bit at all. They're interested in a much broader part of the puzzle.
I appreciate the answer. Another thing I think I would suggest, something that just come to my mind is, in trying to make information security professionals more relevant and productive, it has to be a top-down approach. Maybe businesses will begin to redefine the roles to be more business specific. I don't understand if I'm saying. I understand my role, for example, is to ensure that there's internet available for business to do what they have to do. Probably at the time your KPI is being defined, because it doesn't come naturally to us to communicate. Probably there's a way you explain that, like in a business sense, to us, so that when we are reporting, we're saying, okay, company is losing 5 million or 500,000 every 5 minutes that this link is either overutilized or unavailable, so that we don't have to worry too much about it, so that when we are sending a report, for example, I have a column where I'll say, for 5 minutes that this link is down, you have lost or gained this. I think that has to be an approach that comes from maybe guys at the top, so that our work will be made easy. For example, if I'm in a SOC, mine is just to do threat analysis. I'm looking at a SIM solution in front of me. My job is to, I'm doing a million things at the same time. I'm doing online real-time threat analysis. I have a report I'm running after. I don't have the time to, maybe I'm called to a meeting and there's an incident, for example. They're asking me to come and explain what happened. I'll just tell you what I saw. And then I'll have to give you that data. I might not know how to explain it in financial terms because I'm not a financial person.
Okay, so one final comment then to address that, and then we can draw ourselves to a close, I think.
Responsibility.
Yes, all down to you.
I was just going to say, there's a famous example from NASA where a guy sweeping the floor in a hangar was asked, so what's your job? And he said, my job is to help send a man to the moon. And it's about great leadership. Some companies have it. It's unfortunate, but some companies need to develop it far more. And it's about having that vision of purpose communicated down from the top. You're completely right, and very insightful comment. I was also going to say, I share your pain. Volunteer for difficult circumstances that are outside of your comfort zone, like presenting at this event today, and practice. And that's where good communication comes from, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And I think at that point, it's an excellent point to stop and thank the panel very much for all their inputs.